My mother looked me straight in the eye and said, "We just can't afford to take two, Ella. It wouldn't be fair to cancel now. Everything's already booked. Your sister is going on the trip. You'll understand. You always do." That was the moment something inside me finally cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. It cracked quietly, the way something breaks after being bent too many times. 26 years of being the understanding one. The dependable one. The girl who stayed home, paid bills, cooked meals, covered gaps, and silently held the house together while everyone else lived their lives. And now I was supposed to smile while they sent my sister on a dream vacation and left me behind like a spare chair shoved into a corner. I laughed, but it came out sharp, almost hysterical. "Right," I said. "Of course, I understand." They thought this was just another moment where I'd swallow the disappointment and move on. They had no idea that while they were packing bikinis and beach outfits, I was packing something else entirely. For the first time in my life, I wasn't planning how to survive in that house. I was planning how to leave it, and what I was going to take with me when I did. They kept talking about budgets, timing, and promises, as if those words justified everything. They didn't notice the way my eyes moved around the room. The couch, the television, the shelves, the appliances, the things I had worked double shifts to pay for. They didn't realize I was counting them, one by one, like items on a list I already owned. They thought they were leaving me behind. They had no idea that by the time they came back, the girl they treated like background noise would be gone for good, and the house they took for granted would echo in a way they'd never forget. You don't reach a breaking point in a single moment. It builds slowly, layer by layer, like dust no one bothers to wipe away, until one day you can't breathe anymore. A week before the trip, I stood in the kitchen at the counter I'd paid for, scrolling through emails from work. Rent reminder. Utility notice. A polite thank you from my boss for staying late again. Responsibility. Always responsibility. From the living room, I heard my mother's voice, bright and excited. The resort sent the confirmation. Ocean view room, breakfast buffet, spa credit, she's going to love it. My chest tightened. I stepped into the doorway and watched them. My mother waved, printed papers like they were tickets to happiness. My father nodded, pretending to care about details he'd forget by tomorrow. My sister lounged on the couch, scrolling through swimsuit ads, smiling. I hadn't even been told yet that I wasn't going. I just felt it. That familiar sinking feeling. The one that always came before disappointment, I was expected to accept quietly. "What's going on?" I asked, forcing a smile. My mother turned, as if she'd just noticed me. "Oh, Ella, we're finalizing the trip. After everything lately, your sister really needs this break." A break from what? Her social life. My father shot me a look. One word. Sharp. "Ellie, don't make it about you." A few days later, the truth fell out of my mother's mouth like it was nothing. We sat at the dinner table, eating from plates I'd bought with my first real paycheck. She set down her fork and sighed. "So, about the trip, there's something we need to explain." I already knew. "We wanted to take you both," she said, "but we just can't afford 2 tickets. Prices went up. Resort fees are insane. Your dad's hours got cut. We had to make a choice." I stared at her. "And you chose her." She flinched, but didn't deny it. "We promised her months ago," she said softly. "She's been looking forward to it. You've been so busy with work anyway. You hate crowds. You wouldn't enjoy it the same way." My father jumped in, irritated. "Don't turn this into drama. It's just a vacation. There will be other trips." I laughed bitterly. "Will there? Because I don't remember being invited to the last one, or the one before that." My sister shifted uncomfortably. "Ella, come on. Don't make them feel bad. You know how things are." That was it. How things are. "It's not about the trip," I said quietly. "It's about the pattern." Birthdays where her gifts were thoughtful and mine were rushed. School events where they screamed her name from the stands and forgot to ask how I did. Nights I stayed late at work to keep the lights on while she asked for money to go out. "I live here too," I said. "I help pay for this house, but when something fun comes up, I suddenly don't exist." My mother's face hardened. "That's not fair. We appreciate you." Do you? I shot back. Because every sacrifice is me, every bill is me. But when it's something special, it's always sorry, Ella, maybe next time. Silence fell. My father sighed. You're overreacting. You're an adult. Life isn't always equal. Your sister is younger. She needs these experiences. There it was. The excuse they'd always used. I needed you too, I said, my voice shaking. I needed you when I worked double shifts instead of going to parties, when I paid for groceries while you took her shopping. They didn't look at me. That hurt more than anything. That night, I lay awake replaying everything. The scholarship ceremony, they forgot. The Christmas sweater too, sizes too big. The power bill I quietly paid. They had trained me to be invisible. Only this time, the anger didn't fade. It sharpened. It turned into a plan. The morning they left for the airport, the house felt like a stage set. Suitcases by the door. Laughter everywhere. My sister posing for photos. My mother hugged me quickly. Water the plants. Bring packages inside. We'll get you something from the gift shop. I smiled. Have fun. The door closed. The car pulled away. Silence. I looked around the house. My couch. My TV. My furniture. My appliances. I went to my room and pulled out a folder from the bottom drawer. Receipts. Invoices. Proof. I called a moving company. I'm moving, I said. Everything I paid for. Will anyone else be there? The man asked. No, I replied. They're away. 2 days later, the truck arrived. I pointed. This goes, that goes, all of it. The emptiness spread slowly, deliberately. I left behind the things I never cared about. The ugly lamp. The chipped table. I wanted them to see the difference. When the house was empty, it finally felt honest. At my new apartment, I watched my life come together piece by piece. Mine. I didn't leave a note. They didn't deserve one. When they came back, my phone exploded. Messages. Voicemails. I didn't answer. When they showed up at my door, angry and accusing, I laid the receipts on the table. Call the police, I said calmly. Tell them I stole my own life. They didn't. The fallout was loud. The gossip louder. But my life grew quieter. Stronger. I got promoted. I built savings. I slept peacefully. When my sister finally admitted she'd enjoyed being the favorite, it hurt. But it was honest. When my parents apologized, it wasn't enough. So I set boundaries. Therapy. Respect. Or nothing. They agreed. And for the first time, I believed myself more than I believed them. I wasn't the extra anymore. I was the main character. I didn't just leave a house. I reclaimed my life. And I will never let anyone make me feel invisible again. The weeks after that felt unreal, like I had stepped into someone else's life and was slowly learning how to live inside it. Mornings were quiet now. No tension in the air. No unspoken expectations waiting for me before I even opened my eyes. I woke up when I wanted. I made coffee in my own kitchen. I sat on my couch and stared at the ocean through my window, letting the sound of waves replace the constant noise of guilt that used to follow me everywhere. But healing isn't clean. It doesn't move in a straight line. Some nights, the silence hit too hard. I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, ready to text my mom about something small, like a funny customer at work or a recipe I wanted to try. Then I'd remember that those conversations had never really been about me. They were about what I could give, what I could fix, what I could absorb. So I put the phone down. At work, people started noticing the difference. You seem lighter, one of my coworkers said while we closed up one night. Like you finally slept. I smiled because she was right. For the first time in years, I wasn't exhausted from carrying other people's lives on my back. My parents, on the other hand, were unraveling. Rachel kept me updated without me even asking. The house is still half empty, she told me one afternoon. Your dad keeps complaining about money. Your mom keeps saying she doesn't understand how things got this bad. I did. Perfectly. They had mistaken my reliability for obligation. My silence for consent. My sister tried harder than the rest of them. She called once a week, sometimes just to talk about nothing. Sometimes to tell me how tense things were at home. They're fighting a lot, she admitted. Mostly about money, about you. Good, I said, then paused. Not because I want them miserable, because it means they can't ignore it anymore. She didn't argue. One evening, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. No drama. No tears. Just my sister, standing there with a paper bag. I brought dinner, she said quietly. I hesitated, then stepped aside. We ate on opposite ends of the couch, the space between us heavy with everything we hadn't said yet. I didn't realize how much you did, she finally said. Not really. I thought helping was your choice, that you liked it. I stared at my hands. I didn't like it. I just didn't think I had another option. She nodded slowly. I'm starting to see that now. That was the first real crack in the version of our family she'd grown up believing. My parents started therapy 2 weeks later. I didn't celebrate. I didn't soften. I waited. Because words are easy when consequences arrive. Change is harder when comfort disappears. My mom called me after their 3rd session. Her voice sounded smaller. They said we leaned on you because it was easier than fixing ourselves, she said. I didn't like hearing that. You weren't supposed to, I replied. She was quiet for a long time. I miss you, she whispered. I closed my eyes. I miss the idea of parents who saw me, I said, not the ones who needed me. That conversation didn't fix anything, but it shifted something. For once, she didn't argue. She didn't minimize. She just listened. Meanwhile, my life kept expanding. I bought new curtains. Painted one wall a soft blue. Started running in the mornings, not to escape, but because I wanted to feel strong. I stopped apologizing for existing. One night, sitting alone with the windows open, it hit me how different everything felt. I wasn't angry anymore. I was clear. Clear about what I deserved. Clear about what I would never accept again. My family didn't fall apart because I left. They fell apart because they were built on my silence. All I did was stop holding the walls up. And for the first time, instead of being terrified of what would happen without me, I felt proud. Because I chose myself. And that choice changed everything. Time did something unexpected after that. It didn't rush to fix anything. It didn't magically soften everyone's feelings. Instead, it slowed everything down and forced the truth to sit where it belonged. My parents started calling less. Not because they didn't want to talk, but because they were finally learning not to lean on me as their emotional crutch. When they did call, the conversations were shorter, careful, almost awkward. No guilt trips. No subtle reminders of everything they'd done for me. No family helps family speeches. It felt unfamiliar, but also necessary. My sister became the bridge I never asked for. She didn't defend them anymore. She didn't ask me to forgive faster. She just listened. One afternoon, she told me something that stuck. Mom cried in therapy last week, she said. Not about the furniture, not about the money, about realizing she trained you to disappear. That sentence sat heavy in my chest. Disappear. That was the word. I hadn't been difficult. I hadn't been dramatic. I had slowly erased myself so everyone else could stay comfortable. And they let me. The strangest part was how peaceful my life felt without that role. I stopped jumping every time my phone buzzed. Stopped feeling responsible for emergencies that weren't mine. Stopped measuring my worth by how useful I was. At work, the promotion changed how people spoke to me. They asked my opinion. They trusted my decisions. It made me realize something painful and freeing at the same time. Strangers respected me more than my own family ever had. One night, after closing the cafe, I walked along the beach alone. The sky was dark, the water calm. I thought about the version of myself who would have cried here a year ago, wondering what she'd done wrong. I whispered to the ocean, "You weren't wrong, you were just tired." That was the first time I fully forgave myself. A few weeks later, my parents asked if they could visit my apartment. Not to argue, not to demand, just to see it. I said yes, but on my terms. They stood in my living room like guests, not owners. My mother touched the back of the couch gently. My father kept his hands in his pockets. "This feels very you," my mom said quietly. "That's the point," I replied. They didn't stay long. They didn't ask to take anything back. They didn't talk about the past. When they left, my mom hugged me. This time, I didn't step away. Not because everything was healed, but because the hug didn't feel like a transaction. Later that night, I realized something important. Walking away hadn't destroyed my family. It had exposed it. And exposure is painful, but it's also honest. I didn't need revenge anymore. I didn't need validation. I had my own life. My own space. My own voice. I was no longer the extra. I was the one who finally chose herself. Something shifted after that visit. Not loudly. Not all at once. But in the small, almost invisible ways that only happen when people finally understand they can no longer cross the same lines. My parents stopped assuming they had access to my time. They asked instead of expected. They waited instead of demanding. It didn't erase the past, but it changed the present. One evening, my mother called and asked a simple question. "Are you free this weekend?" Not, "We need you." Not, "Can you help us?" Just a question. I checked my calendar before answering, not out of politeness, but because my life finally had one. "Yes," I said, "for a short visit." She sounded relieved, but she didn't push for more. That mattered. When I went to their house, it still looked unfamiliar. They had replaced a few things, cheaper versions of what I'd taken. Nothing quite fit the space the same way. Neither did they. My father tried to joke, but it fell flat. My mother kept watching me, like she was afraid I'd disappear again if she blinked. At one point, she said quietly, "I didn't realize how much of the house was you." I met her eyes. "That's because you never had to." She nodded. No excuses. No defense. My sister joined us later, and for the first time, I noticed how different our dynamic felt. She didn't interrupt me. Didn't talk over me. Didn't look to our parents for approval before responding. She asked me questions instead. Real ones. About my job. My plans. My life. And I realized something else then. Favoritism doesn't just hurt the ignored child. It cripples the favored one, too. She was learning who she was without the pedestal. I was learning who I was without the weight. Neither of us knew exactly how to navigate that yet, but at least we were honest about it. Later that night, when I drove back to my apartment, I didn't feel drained. I felt aware. Aware of how far I'd come. Aware of how easily I could have gone back to being quiet, convenient, and invisible if I hadn't left when I did. That version of me would have smiled. Would have reassured them. Would have carried the emotional load home and unpacked it alone. I didn't miss her. Weeks passed. Then months. My parents stayed in therapy. My sister kept standing her ground. And I kept choosing myself, even when it felt uncomfortable. Especially when it felt uncomfortable. One night, as I sat alone with the windows open and the ocean breeze moving through the room, it hit me. I wasn't waiting for their approval anymore. I wasn't measuring my healing by how sorry they felt. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. And I was grateful for it. Because freedom didn't come from being understood. It came from deciding that I didn't need permission to live my own life. Something shifts after you stop proving your worth. You don't notice it right away. It sneaks in quietly, in the way your shoulders stop tensing when your phone rings, or how you no longer rehearse explanations in your head before saying no. I started noticing it in small moments. The first time my mom asked, "Can you help us with something?" And I replied, "I can't," without giving a reason. The pause on the other end of the line was long. Then she said, "Okay." No argument. No guilt. No reminder of everything they'd done for me. Just okay. That single word felt heavier than any apology. My sister and I began meeting occasionally. Not to dissect the past, not to play family therapy on a diner table. Just coffee, small talk, awkward laughter. One afternoon, she said, "They're learning how to live without you fixing everything." I stirred my drink slowly. They should have learned that years ago. She nodded. I know. For the first time, she didn't try to soften it. She didn't defend them. She let the truth stand where it was. At home, my apartment became a reflection of who I was becoming. Not perfect. Not staged. Real. I framed a photo of the ocean at sunset. Bought a bookshelf just because I liked it. Left dishes in the sink overnight without feeling like the world would collapse. I wasn't performing adulthood anymore. I was living it. One evening, my dad called unexpectedly. "I just wanted to tell you," he said, voice rough. "We had to sell the old recliner." I almost laughed. The chair he'd refused to throw out for decades. "We needed the money," he added quietly, "and it was time." It wasn't about the chair. It was about letting go of the version of the house where I carried everything. "I hope you're okay," I said. "I think we're learning to be," he replied. After we hung up, I sat in silence for a long time. Not sad. Not angry. Just aware. That night, I wrote something down in a notebook I'd started keeping. I am not responsible for other people's comfort at the cost of my own. I read it back twice. Then once more, just to be sure. The biggest change wasn't my family. It was me. I no longer explained myself. I no longer shrank to keep peace. I no longer waited to be chosen. And when people asked about my parents, about the house, about the distance, I didn't defend or dramatize. I simply said, I moved out, I needed my own life. That was enough. Because the truth is, walking away didn't make me cold. It made me honest. And honesty, I learned, is what finally lets you breathe. Something changed after that visit. Not dramatically. Not overnight. But in small, undeniable ways. My parents stopped assuming I was available. They started asking instead of expecting. And when I said no, the world didn't end. That alone felt revolutionary. My mother would pause on the phone now, choosing her words carefully. My father stopped making jokes about money around me. They were learning, slowly and awkwardly, what it meant to live without leaning on me. And for the first time, I let them. My sister surprised me the most. She started pushing back at home. Not loudly. Not emotionally. Firmly. "She doesn't owe us anything," she told them once, loud enough that I could hear it through the phone when she called later. "You don't get to be mad that she stopped saving you." Hearing that from her felt strange. Healing and painful at the same time. Because part of me grieved the years she hadn't said it. But another part understood something important. We were both raised inside the same house, but not inside the same reality. She was learning now. And learning late was still learning. Life kept unfolding in ways I hadn't planned. I started dadding again. Not because I felt lonely, but because I finally felt whole enough to share space with someone else. On the first date, he asked about my family. I didn't rush to defend them. I didn't minimize. I said, "We're complicated, but I have boundaries now." He smiled and said, "That sounds healthy." No one had ever said that about me before. I realized then how deeply I had associated love with sacrifice. How I believed being needed was the same as being valued. It was. Being valued felt quieter. Steadier. It felt like someone asking how my day was and actually listening to the answer. Months passed. The house I'd left behind slowly filled again, but not the way it used to. Cheaper furniture. Mismatched pieces. Rachel told me once, it still doesn't feel like before. It's like they're always aware something missing. Good, I thought. Not because I wanted them punished, but because awareness is where accountability begins. One evening, my mom called me crying. Not hysterical. Just tired. I wish we had done better by you, she said. I believed her. That didn't mean I erased the past. It meant I acknowledged the present. We can only do better going forward, I replied. And only if it's consistent. She agreed. Not defensively. Not bitterly. She agreed. That was new. I didn't move back. I didn't merge finances. I didn't step into old roles. I visited sometimes. I left when I wanted. And every time I walked out that door, I felt something I'd never felt before. Freedom without guilt. One afternoon, sitting alone in my apartment, I caught my reflection in the window. I looked calm. Grounded. Not hardened. Not angry. Just steady. I thought about the girl who laughed and said, "Of course, I understand," while something inside her broke. I wished I could go back and tell her this. You're not selfish. You're not dramatic. You're not ungrateful. You're exhausted. And you're allowed to stop. I didn't win by emptying a house. I didn't win by proving a point. I won by choosing myself and refusing to disappear ever again. And that choice keeps paying me back every single day. Closure doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, in moments you don't expect. For me, it came on an ordinary Tuesday. I was folding laundry in my apartment, sunlight spilling across the floor when my phone buzzed. A message from my father. "We went to therapy again today. I just wanted you to know, I finally understand something." I almost didn't open it. But I did. I thought being proud of you was enough. I thought saying, "Ella can handle it," meant I was respecting you. What I was really doing was avoiding responsibility as a parent. I'm sorry. I sat on the edge of the bed for a long time. Not crying. Not shaking. Just breathing. Because that message wasn't an apology meant to pull me back. It wasn't a hook. It was an admission. And that mattered. I didn't rush to reply. I didn't feel obligated to comfort him. When I finally did respond, it was simple. "Thank you for saying that. I'm still protecting my peace, but I hear you." And for the first time, that boundary didn't feel like a wall. It felt like a door I could choose to open or close. My sister kept her promise too. She stopped letting them use her as a messenger to soften things. She shut down conversations that blamed me. She corrected stories when people tried to twist the narrative. One day she told me, "They do like it, but they're learning they can't rewrite what happened." I smiled. Growth doesn't always look kind. Sometimes it looks uncomfortable. Life settled into a rhythm I never had before. Work. Home. Rest. Not survival. Not constant fixing. Living. I started planning things just for myself. A short solo trip. A class I'd always wanted to take. Small dreams that used to feel selfish now felt natural. One evening, standing in my kitchen, I realized something almost funny. I no longer thought about the house I left. Not with anger. Not with satisfaction. Just distance. That house had been a chapter, not the story. My parents didn't suddenly become perfect. My family didn't transform overnight. But something fundamental shifted. They learned I could leave. And more importantly, I learned I could stay gone without losing myself. That's the kind of power no one can take back. I didn't win by emptying a house. I didn't win by proving a point. I won the moment I stopped begging to be seen. The moment I chose boundaries over approval. Peace over familiarity. Self-respect over sacrifice. Some people will say it was harsh. Some will say family should always come first. But here's the truth they don't tell you. Family that loves you should never require you to disappear. And if walking away is the only way to be whole, then walking away isn't cruelty. It's survival. I am not the extra anymore. I am the woman who learned her worth, claimed it, and built a life that no one gets to take from her again. And that will always be enough.